Behind them were the goods transported by the caravan. On a carriage full of goods sat a middle-aged man with a scar on his right eyebrow and a stubble on his face. It's him. When the coachman saw the guards and brought the two lords over, his expression changed again and again. He thought about it 10,000 times in his heart. Ever since the first day of the convoy's journey, he had been wondering if he had done something wrong. Don't be nervous. I'm just asking you a few simple questions. Lin Bai comforted him softly. The coachman's expression softened a little, but he still looked confused. He looked at Lin Bai, then at Rong Zi. He did not know what to do until he saw the guard behind the two of them. The guard was grimacing at the corner of his mouth and his face. He was trying his best to signal to the coachman, "Get down! Get down!" The coachman came to a sudden realization. He propped his hands on the carriage and landed steadily on the ground. He bent his back slightly and asked in confusion, "I don't know what the two lords want to ask. I'm just a coachman who doesn't know anything. I'm short-sighted. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to help the two lords." "You still don't know anything?" Lin Bai teased in his heart, but his expression was still as calm as water. He said, "I heard that you know the situation around here like the back of your hand?" The coachman's gaze inadvertently glanced at the guard. "What good thing did you find for me?" The guard did not look away. Instead, he looked at the coachman and said, "Just wait and thank me." The coachman looked away and stopped looking at the guard. He nodded and said, "I do know a thing or two about this area." Rong Zi stood behind Lin Bai and looked at the scene in front of him. He still did not know what Lin Bai was going to do. However, with Lin Bai's reputation in the city and Lin Bai's performance a few days ago, he couldn't help but believe in Lin Bai. He felt that every word and everything he said had meaning. "Good to see you over there," Lin Bai said and gave Rong Zi a look. Rong Zi nodded knowingly. He reached into his pocket and took out a silver ingot and handed it to the coachman, who was still in a daze. When the coachman saw the silver in his hand, he was stunned at first. When he regained his senses, he became ecstatic. He carefully took the silver back and patted his chest with his other hand. "Sir, don't worry. There's nothing within 300 miles that I don't know." As expected, money can make the devil move the millstone. Even if he didn't give the silver, the coachman would tell everything he knew because of his and Rong Zi's identity. However, with the silver, the coachman would choose his words carefully and tell them everything he knew. The guard raised his eyebrows at the coachman, who was still scolding him. "Hurry up and thank me." The coachman smiled and showed his gratitude. To Rong Zi and the others, this silver ingot might be insignificant money, but to the coachman and the guard, it could help them a lot. "All right, come with me to the carriage. The rest of you can leave now." Lin Bai waved his hand, and the coachman and Rong Zi quickly followed. The rest of the guards returned to their posts. Rong Zi sat beside Lin Bai and poured a cup of tea for Lin Bai and the coachman. At first, the coachman was still reserved, but seeing that the two lords were amiable, he somewhat relaxed. He picked up the tea that Rong Zi had poured and took a sip. His eyes widened. "Good tea." Lin Bai saw that the coachman's expression had eased up, and his expression began to relax. He slowly said, "How many small towns and villages are there nearby? Are there any small bandit strongholds? As long as you know where there are people living, tell us." The coachman raised his eyebrows and was very puzzled. "I'm sorry to ask, but the reason Your Excellency wants to know is..." Rong Zi glanced at the corner of his mouth and said coldly, "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Your Excellency came to ask you." Lin Bai raised his hand to show that he was fine and said, "Recently, Black Cloud Stockade has been acting strangely, and we have to enter their territory. I want to investigate something." Lin Bai didn't mind letting the coachman know about this. Rong Zi said, "Don't ask questions you shouldn't ask," but in fact, he was also the one who wanted to ask. When Lin Bai came to look for him today, and then went to look for this coachman, he had been in the water all this time, and only now did he know Lin Bai's plan. Lin Bai saw that the coachman's face showed some fear, and comforted him, "Don't worry. With our strength, if we can add in our knowledge of this area, we will be able to safely leave the Black Cloud stronghold." After the coachman heard this, his expression relaxed a little and said, "That's good, that's good. The Black Cloud mountain range is filled with people who kill without batting an eyelid." The coachman was born and raised in this area. Since he was young, The Black Cloud Mountain Range had already existed. Hence, he was very familiar with the methods of the Black Wind Mountain Range. If it was possible, he did not want to meet people from the Black Wind Mountain Range for the rest of his life. The coachman's eyes rolled around, and he swallowed his saliva, saying, "Then I'll tell you, sir, about the places around here where people live." Lin Bai nodded silently. According to the coachman, there were 11 villages, big and small, and 2 small towns in the center of this position. "Look at my memory." The coachman patted his head, as if he remembered something. "It's getting dark soon. 3 miles west of the road ahead, there's a small village with dozens of families. It's called Tuaha Village." After asking for this information, Lin Bai asked Rongzi to give some more tips to the coachman and invited the coachman, who kept thanking him out. Tuaha Village. Luo Ningyu was half lying on the bed, and her eyes revealed a thoughtful look. "Then tonight, we'll spend the night in Tuaha Village. It's just nice to see if our guess is correct." After saying that, Luo Ningyu ordered Rongzi to inform the leader of the convoy of this matter. According to the original plan, they would not stop at Tuaha Village. Instead, they would spend the night at Red Fish Hill, which was 30 miles away. After the leader of the convoy heard this, although he was a little confused, he could only agree to it since Luo Ningyu had already said so. A red glow appeared in the distant sky. Tuaha Village also appeared in the line of sight of the convoy. Tuaha Village was surrounded by rivers on 3 sides. There was also a small mountain in the southeast. The villagers who had finished farming were walking toward the village in 2s and 3s. When they saw the caravan coming, they chatted for a while. When they arrived at the entrance of Tuaha Village, the caravan stopped, and the leader led 2 people to talk to the people in the village. First, it was to prevent the other party from feeling conflicted, and second, it was to help Lin Bai gather information. "Young Master Lin." The leader returned to the caravan when it was almost dark. "I asked the village chief of Tuaha Village, and he said that he hadn't seen anyone from the Black Cloud stronghold in recent days." Rongzi also came back late. "I asked a few villagers. They also said that they hadn't seen anyone from the Black Cloud stronghold for 2 or 3 months. Luo Ningyu turned to look at Lin Bai and asked softly, "The villagers here all said that they hadn't seen anyone from the Black Cloud stronghold for a long time. What do you think?" "They're lying." Late at night, the convoy camped at the village entrance of Tuaha Village was already silent. The guards had been working day and night for some time, and they were already exhausted. It was rare for them to be so generous, so they did not need to keep vigil tonight and slept peacefully. After all, what they were about to enter next was the Black Cloud stronghold. At that time, the guards would be under even more pressure than they were now, and they would not be able to relax even for a single moment. Therefore, it was extremely necessary for them to relax for a night in this village, recuperate, and relieve their fatigue. To tell the horses to run and not eat grass. In this world, how could there be such a good thing? Even if they could achieve this goal, once they arrived, the horses would have to rest and not do anything. Qilong and the others drank quite a lot of wine with Lin Bai. "Burp. I really regret meeting you. Young Master Lin, so late. Come, let us drink to our heart's content again in the future and call over a dozen beauties. We won't stop until we're drunk." Qilong burped and his footsteps floated. His eyes were blurred, and with Rongzi's support, he returned to the carriage. The rest of the people were also drunk. Their eyes were erratic as they took their leave. "Young Master Lin, we will take our leave first." "Okay, everyone, please take a rest. We will enter the Black Cloud stronghold tomorrow." Lin Bai nodded slowly and watched them leave. He looked outside the carriage. In the night sky, the moon was in the clouds. Half of its body was exposed, shining with a silvery white light. The entire village was already pitch black. Most of the villagers here mainly worked in agriculture and lived a life of resting at sunset. Usually, they would fall asleep as soon as the sky darkened. There was a thick locust tree at the village entrance. Under the gentle night wind, the leaves rustled. "Little Red." Lin Bai called out softly. Little Red, whose entire body was red, flapped its wings and descended from the night sky back into the carriage. "Let's rest today." Little Red nodded. After another 2 hours, the convoy quieted down. After days of hard work and trepidation, many merchants found a moment of peace in this place and fell into a deep sleep. Outside the village, in a dense forest. Fourth brother, when are we going up? These guys are all asleep. Moreover, I saw a woman inside. TSK, she's so F*** pretty. Just looking at me makes me unable to control myself. A man wearing a black nightgown and holding 2 machetes had a dirty expression on his face. He had 2 missing front teeth, and his words were a little drafty. Wait a little longer. The person called Fourth Brother was also wearing a black nightgown. His eyebrows were so light that they didn't seem to grow at all. There was a cross-shaped scar on his chin. He was thin and held a round wheel in his hand. The outside of the round wheel was filled with polished blades that emitted a cold light under the night sky, making people shudder. TSK, at this time, there are really not many people who dare to pass through our territory, and it's such a big ticket. Fourth brother, we definitely can't let go of this opportunity. That pretty girl and her servants are all pretty and rich. The bald man holding a gun on the side had a dirty expression. He stuck out his tongue to lick his lips and used one hand to scratch his buttocks. Behind the 3 of them, there were more than 40 other people who were also wearing night clothes and emitting the smell of blood. Obviously, none of them were desperados who licked blood with the tip of a knife. After a while, a figure quietly approached from the other side. Fourth brother. It was a man dressed in black. They have stepped on the spot. They are all asleep. It seems that they are a bunch of inexperienced people. Even the guards have gone to sleep. Hee. Little did they know that the people in the village have been colluding with us for a long time. Such people are meat sent into our mouths. Fourth brother stared into the man's eyes and nodded slightly. He turned his head and looked behind him. Divide into 3 groups and sneak over. Wait for my command, and all of you will charge forward. Yes. A faint sound came from the dense forest, followed by the sound of stepping on grass. Tisk, fourth brother, do you think the few of us can have a taste of that woman secretly? If I can do it once, I will die without regrets. The bald man smiled wretchedly, his eyes filled with greed. Fourth brother sneered and said, after I have a taste. What he meant was that it was possible. The bald man and the other man laughed and could not help but rub their hands together. They wanted nothing more than to rush up and capture this group of people. Fourth brother held his breath and concentrated. He estimated the time and turned his head to look at the 3 of them. The person who had not spoken all this time nodded. After that person understood, he put his hands in front of his mouth and puffed up his cheeks to blow. The night sky seemed to be filled with the cries of night birds. The bald duo grinned and charged forward with weapons in their hands. Brothers, let's go. Try to capture as many alive as possible. The more we capture, the more we reward. Fourth brother even said that he would give us a taste of that woman. Charge. The bald man led his men and charged forward together. Fourth brother followed closely behind, his gaze sharp as he looked at the convoy ahead. The convoy was still very quiet. There was no reaction at all. They are indeed a bunch of rookies. They still haven't reacted. This is going to be a huge win. Fourth brother smiled coldly, but his expression changed in the next second. According to the previous plan, as long as he gave the signal, there would be another 3 teams charging with them. But what about the 3 teams? Fourth brother didn't believe that the people from these 3 teams would be tired and lazy at such a critical moment. What was the reason? The bald man and Scarface also realized this. They didn't have a wretched smile on their faces and turned to look at fourth brother behind them. However, when they turned their heads, the 2 of them became stiff. Fourth brother. What? When fourth brother heard the 2 of them stuttering, he could not help but feel angry. After fourth brother finished speaking, he seemed to have realized something. He turned around and looked, and his body also froze. The 3 of them had originally brought more than a dozen people, but these people had collapsed on the ground and were emitting a strong smell of blood. They were all dead. Moreover, before they died, they didn't even have the time to scream. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of clapping rang out in the forest. Fourth brother felt his hair stand on end. TSK, I didn't expect you to collude with the villagers here. I really didn't expect that. I almost fell into your trap. Qi Long clapped and walked out of the shadows. Half of his body was already dyed red with blood. Qi Long said that he did not expect this, but his face was full of disdain. No, impossible. How could you have known in advance? Didn't you already? The bald man roared. He was in disbelief at this sudden change in the situation. Didn't we already get deceived by the coachman you arranged? Qi Long smiled, but the bald man's face turned ashen. Fourth brother's face was cold. He held the round wheel in his hand and suddenly turned. Don't talk nonsense with them. Let's fight. The round wheel in fourth brother's hand waved, emitting a sound that made one's ears feel uncomfortable. A gust of wind arose under his feet, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Qi Long. Qi Long waved the long sword in his hand, using offense as defense. His feet stomped on the ground as he adjusted his body position. Bang! The round wheel and the long sword collided. The long sword was sent flying. The round wheel's momentum was unstoppable as it slashed towards Qi Long's chest. Pucci! A bright red line of blood was reflected under the moonlight. Qi Long's face was deathly pale. He covered his wound with his hand and retreated rapidly. He never expected that he would be heavily injured in just one exchange. If he had not subconsciously hit the round wheel with the hilt of his sword, the wound on his chest would have been 3 times deeper, and he would have died on the spot. Hey, you want to run now? Where did your arrogance go? Die! The fourth brother of Black Wind Stockade wanted to seize the opportunity to pursue and attack. Renmu and Wu Su suddenly moved forward and blocked the way of the fourth brother. Renmu and Wu Su had just approached him when 2 figures appeared from the corner of their eyes. They were the bald man and the scarred face. Fourth brother, go and collect that person's dog head. We are here. Although the bald man and the scarred face were stiff just now, they had been living a life of licking blood from their blades every day. They knew that if they didn't try it this time, they would only die. Fourth brother stomped on the ground and jumped up high. The round wheel in his hand seemed to have become a full moon covered with a thin layer of clouds under the moonlight, making it hard to see clearly. Qi Long's face was pale. He stabbed forward with his long sword. The sword pierced through the surrounding air, and it seemed to have become colder. The tip of the sword seemed to be wrapped in a layer of ice. His fourth brother was like a bolt of lightning, falling rapidly. The round wheel slashed towards Qi Long's shoulders, intending to cut him into a dried man. Qi Long's long sword had already stabbed out towards the round wheel, but in the next second, Qi Long was stunned. How is this possible? Qi Long's long sword stabbed towards the round wheel, but when the two collided, there was no sound of collision. It was as if the long sword had stabbed into the air. The round wheel was still unstoppable, and it swung down fiercely. Fourth brother even laughed sinisterly. Hee, this is my move. Qi Long saw from the corner of his eyes that Renmu and Wu Su were engaged in a bitter battle. There was no one beside them, and a look of despair appeared on his face. At this moment, the round wheel was already within reach. If he moved another half an inch, he would be able to cut off Qi Long's arm. Bang! But at this moment, the sound of metal colliding rang out. Qi Long's body flew backward uncontrollably. Qi Long lowered his head to look, and his waist had unknowingly been wrapped by a green tail. Fourth brother looked at Little Black, who had been hit by the round wheel, and a look of satisfaction appeared on his face. Heh, trying to be a hero at a time like this? After taking this knife from me, your iron. Little Black smiled like a human and waved its claws at Brother Four provokingly. However, its back shell was undamaged, not even leaving a mark. Impossible. Brother Four could not believe it. He gritted his teeth and waved the round wheel in his hand again. Bang, bang, bang. The round wheel hit Little Black's back shell again and again, but Little Black's face was as calm as water, and there was a hint of disdain in his eyes. That's it? Fourth brother's face was flushed red. He took a step forward and took the opportunity to kick his back foot forward, waving the round wheel in his hand at the same time. Little Black didn't panic. It brandished its cold claws at Fourth brother's foot. Fourth brother clicked his tongue and wasn't able to retract his foot, but he had already achieved his goal. The round wheel was already aimed at Little Black's head. He's still a spirit beast after all. Stupid. And your beastmaster only knows how to hide far away and play dirty. Wong. A dark blue glow burst forth from Little Black's body, enveloping his entire body. The dark blue glow was like a ball of water vapor. The moment it appeared, the few people present felt their minds quieten down a little. Bang! The round wheel was already swinging down at this moment, but it didn't chop Little Black's head. Instead, it chopped down on the ball of water vapor. Fourth brother only felt as if the round wheel in his hand had chopped into a thick layer of cotton. The force was slowly dissipating, and in the end, it didn't even touch Little Black's main body. Little Black smiled, and the claws in its hand were already moving like lightning, grabbing towards fourth brother's round wheel. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. One side of the round wheel was cut into pieces by Little Black as if it was cutting tofu. How is this possible? Brother Four's face was filled with disbelief. His round wheel could cut through iron like mud, and it was indestructible. Now, it was cut into pieces like tofu by the claws of a small beast? Just as fourth brother was in a daze, Little Black had already closed in on him, its sharp claws clawing at his chest. Poochie. Little Black gave this fourth brother of the Black Cloud Stockade a heart-piercing cold. Little Black's face was full of joy as he turned his head to look behind him. Lin Bai had appeared at some point and nodded dotingly. Well done. Fourth brother. The Baldy cried out in surprise. He had never expected that the fourth brother of the Black Cloud Stockade would be easily taken care of by a small beast that had yet to mature. The scarred face beside him was hit by Wu Su's attack and fell to the ground. Lin Bai looked at Renmu and said coldly, "Capture him alive. Little Red, Little Green, go up and help." Just as Lin Bai finished speaking, a green voice and a crimson figure rushed towards the Baldy at a speed that was difficult for the naked eye to catch. Even though the bald man had wings, he could not escape from this scene and was successfully captured by everyone. "Sir, please spare my life. Please spare my life." The tied-up bald man fell to the ground and begged for mercy. Renmu stepped on the bald man's head and said, "You guys are from the Black Cloud Stockade, right? Next, if young Master Lin has any questions, you will answer them. If there is any falsehood—" No. Baldy shook his head like a rattle drum. "This isn't the territory of your Black Cloud scum, is it?" Lin Bai looked down at Baldy and stared into his eyes. This gaze made Baldy shiver all over, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He only felt that the depths of his heart had been seen through, and he didn't dare to say the slightest falsehood. "No, it's not." Baldy's voice was trembling. "Then why are you crossing the border so frequently and abducting so many people?" Baldy's eyes widened. He had never thought that the secret of the Black Cloud stronghold would be known by this group of people in front of him. "Don't try to muddle through. We still have some understanding of the Black Cloud stronghold," Wu Su said coldly. I'll say it. Baldy gritted his teeth. "Our Black Cloud stronghold is indeed abducting a large number of people, but I don't know why. This is all." Before the bald man could finish his words, a broken round wheel was inserted into his neck, and his head rolled to the side like a rubber ball. When the crowd saw this scene, they fell silent. Wu Su saw the round wheel and shouted, "Impossible! That person should have died a long time ago." The atmosphere of the night became strange. The people who had already won held their breaths. A chill went from their tailbones to their skulls. Their hearts were beating nonstop as if they were going to jump out of their throats in the next moment. In the next second, they saw the darkness in the distance clearly. One of them was covered in blood, emitting a strong stench. He stood up stiffly, his eyes red, looking extremely terrifying under the cover of the night. And the position this person was standing at was the spot where their fourth brother had died. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Resurrected from the dead? No, what the hell? I'm seeing the devil. It's over, it's all over. Immediately, a few people who were unable to maintain their composure and had unstable Dao hearts turned pale. They shouted and their eyes drifted as they scattered in all directions with light footsteps. "Don't run." Wu Su seemed to have thought of something as he shouted loudly and pulled the person beside him who was about to escape. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One after another, strange sounds rang out. One after another, corpses covered in fresh blood and with disjointed limbs stood up. Their eyes were red. Ah, save me! Those who had their Tao hearts broken and were about to run away had barely taken a few steps when resurrected people appeared beside them. When these resurrected people saw the living people, their eyes turned red. They opened their mouths and bit at the nearest living person. Wu Su and Rin Mu raised their bodies and wanted to save them. However, as soon as they took out their weapons, they saw a ferocious figure that looked like a wild beast charging at them. A tree that only 3 people could hug was broken in half by fourth brother. The broken trunk was full of debris, but this still couldn't slow him down. In the next second, he was already in front of the 2 people. Not good, Wu Su shouted. He wanted to counterattack, but it was too late. He could only hurriedly raise his hand to block in front of him and use a few life-saving skills. Damn it! Renmu had never thought that his resurrected fourth brother would be the first to target the 2 of them. There was a humming sound at Renmu's waist. A sword emitting blue light appeared out of thin air, as if it had cut through the darkness of day. The humming of the sword was accompanied by the sound of waves and water flowing. It was very strange. Bang! The life-saving talismans that Wu Su had released shattered one by one. The blue light of the sword in Renmu's hand dimmed, and a crack appeared. Blood flowed out from between his thumb and forefinger. Fourth brother's attack had succeeded. In the blink of an eye, he swept out another leg. This leg carried a dense baleful aura. Before the leg had even arrived, the baleful aura was already pressing down on people. Wu Su and Renmu vomited blood wildly. They were sent flying like weeds. After smashing down one tree after another, they fell heavily to the ground. Fourth brother narrowed his eyes and shot out a ray of blood. He felt that the 2 of them were still alive. He stomped his foot and rushed forward, intending to uproot the weeds. However, before he could take a step forward, Lin Bai lightly stepped on fourth brother's knee and removed the force from his body, causing fourth brother to freeze on the spot. Your opponent is me, Lin Bai said coldly. Qilong, Renmu, and Wu Su were all heavily injured. Renmu and Wu Su's injuries were especially serious. Lin Bai knew that he needed to deal with this fourth brother in front of him as soon as possible, or else the 2 of them would be doomed. Fourth brother froze on the spot. His expression was ferocious, and there were already fangs growing out of the corner of his mouth. His pair of scarlet eyes glanced to his side. Those bandits who were already dead should have killed those guards who were in a daze. However, fourth brother didn't expect that there were a few small beasts fighting with the resurrected bandits and gaining the upper hand. Do you still understand what I'm saying? Lin Bai asked tentatively. He didn't see any emotion in fourth brother's eyes. He only saw an almost real violence. Huff. A heavy breathing sound came from the corner of his fourth brother's mouth. It was as if he was a magical beast. He has no humanity left. A clear and elegant voice sounded from the darkness. Lin Bai immediately smelled a faint fragrance. Luo Ningyu, the 4th leader of the Black Cloud Stronghold, has been using a secret skill. He has become a magical puppet that only knows how to fight and only knows how to devour blood and flesh. Luo Ningyu introduced in detail. Her expression was very calm, as if she was used to seeing this scene. Devil puppets don't know pain. When they fight, they often injure their enemies by 1,000 and injure themselves by 800. You have to be careful. Lin Bai clenched his hands tightly. Lin Bai frowned slightly. Then I'll help you get rid of it. After saying this, Lin Bai clenched his right hand into a claw shape and made a slight grab in the air. A small pitch-black cauldron that gave off an ancient and holy aura appeared out of thin air. Luo Ningyu's eyes, which were as calm as an ancient well, rippled, and the color between her brows and the corner of her mouth faded. Buzz. Lin Bai pushed his right hand forward, and the small cauldron directly smashed toward his fourth brother. Demonic chi surged around his fourth brother's body, enveloping him like armor. When he saw the small cauldron, he was confused for a moment. Then, he charged straight toward the small cauldron and toward Lin Bai. Lin Bai frowned, but his hand did not show any mercy. The small cauldron smashed into fourth brother's chest as easily as breaking a dried twig. It shattered his chest, and his bones and flesh flowed all over the ground. Fourth brother's expression did not change, and his attack did not stop for a moment. His two hands formed into claws and clawed towards Lin Bai. Demon chi surrounded his claws, and he was the first to touch Lin Bai. However, Lin Bai was clearly prepared. His right leg had already been pulled out, and he fiercely kicked fourth brother's jaw from the bottom up. Bang! Blood and teeth flew everywhere. His fourth brother flew upwards due to this force. Let's end it here. Lin Bai's eyes were cold. The small tripod in his hand had been thrown out and smashed on his fourth brother's head. It exploded like a balloon. His fourth brother's headless body collapsed on the ground. Black blood flowed all over the ground, but his body did not move at all. In the dense forest far away, hiss! What kind of treasure is Lin Bai and that small cauldron of his? He actually killed the fourth brother of the Black Cloud stronghold with one strike. A 2-meter-tall man wearing night clothes clicked his tongue in wonder. Humph, little Doyle. We can't stay here for long. Lu, are you done? A man covered in black said coldly. He didn't care about what happened in front of him at all. Okay, heh. Luo Ningyu laughed sinisterly. Now, our mission has been completed. The man in the black shadow nodded silently and disappeared in the next second. The remaining two people took one last look at Lin Bai and the others at the village entrance. The smile on their lips also disappeared. Luo Ningyu glanced around coldly. After a long while, she said softly, "There are no more survivors." Yes. Lin Bai nodded. The commotion just now may have disturbed the people in the convoy. We have to go back and pacify them as soon as possible. I'm afraid Rongzi is already too busy. Qilong and the other two had already been brought back by the doctors in the convoy for treatment. The doctors in the convoy were all selected by Luo Ningyu. Their medical skills were extraordinary, so Lin Bai was relieved. Rongzi stood at the end of the convoy and looked in the direction of the village. The lights of the 10,000 houses had been extinguished. It was peaceful and peaceful. It was an extreme contrast to the mysterious incident that they had encountered previously. However, why do I feel that it's a little strange? Rongzi frowned and smiled not long after. The people of the Black Cloud stronghold have all been chased away. Even if there are people in the village who have tipped them off, what kind of waves can they cause? Rongzi shook his head and walked toward the guards. Many of the guards were injured. In addition to the weird events such as coming back from the dead, a few of them who were mentally weak had almost collapsed before their eyes not long ago. Such emotions would be spread to the people around them. What Rongzi had to do was to calm the guards down so that they could calm down. Otherwise, they would not only be of no help to the rest of the journey, but they would also become a burden to the entire convoy. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu walked side by side in the convoy. In the convoy, other than the guards, the rest were relatively calm. However, they were troubled by the fact that they did not know what had happened earlier. Under Luo Ningyu's instructions, the leader of the convoy succinctly told everyone in the convoy what had just happened. Just now, the people of the Black Cloud stronghold came to attack us in the night recklessly. We have already heavily injured them. Even the fourth brother of the Black Cloud stronghold is already withered. Everyone does not need to worry. This journey, the leader's sonorous and powerful voice dispelled the anxiety in the convoy. The people who were originally gathered in 2s and 3s also dispersed to get ready to rest. Take care of the guards. Don't let anyone else in the convoy know about the news. Luo Ningyu's face was expressionless as she calmly said to the leader. The leader kept nodding his head. Although his expression was calm, there was already some anxiety and fear in the depths of his eyes. Who did they kill? The fourth brother of the Black Cloud stronghold. This group of bandits did all kinds of evil, but when it came to taking revenge for their brothers, regardless of whether it was genuine or fake, they were usually very persistent. The convoy would enter the territory of the Black Cloud stronghold the next day. At that time, one could imagine what kind of attitude the Black Cloud stronghold would have when they came to see them. The leader repeatedly expressed his opinion of taking a detour, but was completely rejected by Luo Ningyu. Before this trip, Luo Ningyu had given him a large sum of silver. It was enough for him to finish this job and become an independent family. As long as he managed it properly, he would have the opportunity to be rich and prosperous for the rest of his life. On one side was fear, and on the other side was desire. After a long period of distress, the leader's choice was obvious. The people in the convoy have been appeased, and the guards have also sealed their mouths. Although doing this will not be able to cover up the fire, my goal has already been achieved. Luo Ningyu sat upright, looking at the bonfire in front of her, deep in thought. Other than the demonic puppet, is there anything else? Lin Bai looked at Luo Ningyu beside him and asked. The light from the bonfire shone on her exquisite face, causing Lin Bai to be unable to help but take a few more glances. Luo Ningyu nodded slightly, looked around, and said softly, also, for example, the soul of a demon servant. This kind of person has the mark left behind by a high-level demon, and if the demon wants to leave behind a mark, this person must wholeheartedly submit to the demon. After that, the demonic servant will become the servant of the demon and will not have any second thoughts towards the demon. The demon even knows what the demonic servant is thinking. If the demonic servant dies, his soul will still be the servant of the demon. Hiss. Lin Bai could not help but gasp. He would not be able to get rid of his identity as a servant even after death. What kind of person would be willing to become the servant of the demon? If you join us, you'll see even more incredible things. A rare smile appeared on Luo Ningyu's face. Luo Ningyu's smile was like a melting glacier, causing Lin Bai's mind to waver. It seems like they really want me to join the organization. Then, what's their motive? Are they cherishing my talents? Are they trying to increase their influence? Lin Bai pondered in his heart, but after thinking for a long time, he still had no idea. And for what reason did Miss Luo become one of them? The corners of Luo Ningyu's lips curled up slightly, but she still did not answer. Lin Bai sighed silently. Luo Ningyu had always been very careful when it came to that organization. Many times, Lin Bai had tried to get some information out of her, but it had all been in vain. Luo Ningyu was an ice-cold beauty. She had the scheming and shrewdness that matched her, so Lin Bai did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. No, it's not good. Just as Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu were about to return to the carriage, a terrified shout came from afar. Rong Zi's face was pale, and he ran over with weak steps. He even fell on the way. Calm down, Luo Ningyu said calmly, as if nothing in this world could make her panic. Tell me in detail. All the villagers in the village came out in the middle of the night. They stood here in a daze, just like zombies. Rong Zi wiped the sweat off his forehead. His face had lost all color. Take us there. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu looked at each other and stood up to follow Rong Zi. When the three of them came to the alley of the village, they saw the villagers standing at the gate of their own courtyard. They were dazed and stood there in a daze. Lin Bai tried to communicate with the villagers, but no one responded. This? Rong Zi's teeth were chattering as he spoke. It's not just here. All the villagers are like this. Luo Ningyu looked around the village and returned, her voice carrying a rare anger. Just as the three of them were at their wits' end, the villagers turned their heads at the same time and looked at Lin Bai and the other two. Their eyes were empty and expressionless. Coupled with the silvery moonlight, it was indescribably horrifying. Rong Zi's knees gave way, and he fell to the ground. Hee. The villagers laughed coldly in unison. There's actually someone who isn't afraid? Boring. The villagers spoke in unison again. At this moment, a strong night wind blew over. Every villager's flesh and body scattered like yellow sand and left with the wind. If there weren't any clothes on the ground, Lin Bai and the others would even have doubts, wondering if what they saw just now was an illusion or if this village had long been deserted. I reckon that not a single person in the entire village survived. They have long been planted with the seeds of the demon. Luo Ningyu sighed softly. It can also be said that they have long died. Lin Bai clenched his fists. His brows were twisted and there was a faint anger in his eyes. What should we do now? Rong Zi stood up weakly. After Little Red sent a wisp of aura into his meridians, Rong Zi's mind gradually calmed down. Should we take a detour? Rong Zi asked tentatively. This time, he was really afraid. No, Lin Bai shook his head. Let's go and meet them. But, Rong Zi wanted to say something, but was stopped by Luo Ningyu. Don't forget the purpose of our trip. The convoy entered the Black Cloud stronghold. Everyone was anxious and uneasy. They looked around, afraid that a burly man would suddenly appear from the bushes by their feet. They did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. Some people even did not dare to breathe loudly. However, as it was nearing noon, it was a hot summer day, and the clear sky was cloudless. The red sun baked the earth, and even the air seemed to distort. Inside the convoy, everyone was covered in sweat, and their footsteps were heavy. They panted heavily, and their water bags were always in their hands. After walking for some distance, they had no choice but to find a cool place to rest. Qilong rode a group of brown, chestnut-colored steeds with obvious muscle lines. Together with Lin Bai, Rongzi, and the others, they walked at the front of the convoy. They acted as the vanguard of the convoy and used their trump cards. They kept their eyes and ears open to ensure that the convoy would not be ambushed by bandits and that no mysterious objects would appear along the way. Now that the caravan had entered the territory of the Black Cloud stronghold, based on the reaction of the Black Cloud stronghold, it was highly likely that they would have a conflict with the bandits of the Black Cloud stronghold here. Therefore, they had to maintain a high level of vigilance. They could not afford to be the slightest bit negligent and careless. It's so King hot. Qilong picked up the water bag and gulped it down. After drinking it, he exhaled a long breath of hot air. He did not have any means to lower the temperature. He had already been roasted by the red sun to the point that he could not bear it anymore. His sweat was even more uncontrollable. The clothes on his body were already stuck tightly to his body. Wusu and Renmu both had methods to lower the temperature, but they were still a little thirsty and their minds were wandering. Rongzi narrowed his eyes and looked around. He scolded. I was a little nervous when I entered the Black Cloud stronghold, but the weather, TSK, made me lose my temper and my sense of nervousness. This is not a good thing. Rongzi wiped the sweat off his forehead with his sleeve, not daring to look away from his surroundings for a moment. Yes, many people in the convoy had heatstroke and had no choice but to slow down. However, in the Black Cloud stronghold's area, the danger will increase with each passing moment. This is not a good thing. And yesterday, that strange incident in the village, the fourth brother of the Black Cloud stronghold rose from the dead. As Wusu and Renmu spoke, they felt a chill from their tailbone straight to their scalp. They could not help but shiver. Luo Ningyu's carriage followed them not far away. Lin Bai suddenly turned to look behind him, and Luo Ningyu coincidentally poked her head out. The two of them looked at each other and communicated privately. Then, they nodded slightly as if they had tacitly agreed to something. Little black, little green, come out, Lin Bai said in his heart. Soon after, two small beasts appeared beside Lin Bai. They blinked their clear and bright eyes and were somewhat confused. However, when they saw Lin Bai's gaze, they nodded in understanding. Buzz, buzz. Two ear-splitting sounds rang out. Two ancient and simple Tao rhythm lights bloomed around Little Green and Little Black. A blue mist appeared around Little Black's body. It was as if there was a majestic ocean within the mist, and one could vaguely hear the surging waves. To people in the heat, this sound was like dew after a long drought. Qilong, who was the closest to Lin Bai, was the first to feel the change. Qilong's face, which had been irritated by the heat, gradually began to ease up. It feels good. Wusu and Renmu also felt waves of coldness. They looked at the two small beasts and said, Magical, magical. Why is it so cool all of a sudden? This must be young Master Lin's trick. It's so fast. If it weren't for young Master Lin, we wouldn't have been able to stand it if we continued to be baked by the sun. Phew, we can finally catch our breath. The whole convoy went from dead to happy. The guards in heavy armor were also delighted. Their armor was airtight. If they were not martial cultivators, they would have fainted in the scorching sun. Amidst the cheers, Lin Bai pulled the reins and slowly came to Luo Ningyu's carriage. Luo Ningyu soon opened the curtains and stuck her head out. She looked at Lin Bai with her bright eyes and said in a clear voice, After entering the Black Cloud stronghold, you also felt that something was wrong? Lin Bai nodded. I felt a faint demonic aura. At first, I thought that there was a monster lurking, but later, I found out that it wasn't. Luo Ningyu's eyes revealed some admiration. It was right to bring you here. At the edge of the Black Cloud stronghold, you could feel the demonic aura. Then it's hard to imagine what the Black Cloud stronghold looks like. However, they didn't feel it. Lin Bai looked at Qilong and the others. He didn't release the two small beasts immediately because he wanted to know if they had sensed the demonic qi. He used this probing method to get the answer because Lin Bai didn't want them to panic. Once they panicked, they would become a burden to Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu. Yesterday, I felt a group of people. Lin Bai stopped and looked at Luo Ningyu's eyes, which seemed to be immersed in a bright gem in a clear lake. Oh! Luo Ningyu raised her eyebrows slightly as if she was a little surprised. It seems that I underestimated you. How can you underestimate me? I'm very big. Cough, cough. Lin Bai couldn't help but complain in his heart. Then, what's the purpose of that group? Luo Ningyu shook her head. I don't know, but I'm afraid that the disappearance of the people in that village is related to them. Lin Bai nodded. He also thought so. When Lin Bai finished off the fourth brother of the Black Cloud stronghold, he had already discovered that group of people hiding in the darkness. It was just that he didn't know their purpose at that time. He was afraid of alerting the enemy, so he didn't make a move on them. After that, the group of people left quietly. Lin Bai didn't pursue any further. However, this matter had always been on his mind, and he couldn't get it out of his mind. Seeing the strange atmosphere here today, he tried to talk to Luo Ningyu. If Luo Ningyu had no clue about this, Lin Bai didn't plan to say anything more. Roar! A deafening roar that shook the earth and mountains rang out. Before the convoy could react, they saw a 5-meter-tall monster rush out from the dense forest at the side. It opened its bloody mouth and tore at Qilong and the others in front of the convoy. Is that a black jade tiger? Lin Bai frowned. No, that's not it. Luo Ningyu was a little surprised. Look at that tiger. Its body is surrounded by demonic qi. Its eyes are all black. There are even rotten spots on its ribs. You can see its bones. Bang! The tiger, which was surrounded by demonic qi, revealed its sharp claws and clawed at Qilong, who was caught off guard. However, at this moment, Little Black appeared in time and blocked this attack. Roar! Roar! At the same time, two deafening roars sounded. A giant eagle with demonic qi around its body and rotten wings that were bone-deep appeared in the sky and swooped down toward the convoy. A millipede that was more than 10 meters long appeared from the ground, breathing black gas. Thank you, thank you. Qilong gripped the reins tightly and used his legs to clamp down on the horse's abdomen. His face was pale and his voice was trembling. If it wasn't for Little Black stepping forward, he might have been split into two by the tiger in front of him and collapsed in a pool of sticky blood. Now is not the time to talk about this. Quickly protect the convoy. Wu Su shouted. Renmu and Little Black were fighting with the tiger that was surrounded by demon qi. The giant eagle and the 1,000-legged worm roared and rushed toward the caravan, ready to start hunting and slaughtering. Monsters! How could there be such a terrifying monster? These monsters are all dead, but why are they moving? Why? Within the convoy, when they saw the 3 monsters that had suddenly appeared, their bodies were all rotten. In some places, even bones could be seen, and they all sank into deep fear. Little Red, Lin Bai said indifferently. Random. A crimson figure flew into the sky like a rising sun, releasing rolling waves of heat. Roar! The huge eagle opened its mouth and spat out a bolt of lightning. It charged towards Little Red and stretched out its 2 claws, directly grabbing towards Little Red. Little Red flapped its wings, and its figure flashed in the air, dodging the lightning spat out by the huge eagle. Bang! The lightning struck the ground, shattering the rocks, and a deep pit appeared on the ground. Bang! Little Red opened its mouth and spat out a ball of flames, directly shooting towards the incoming huge eagle. It used offense as a defense, forcing the huge eagle to flutter its wings and dodge to the other side. However, this also gave Little Red a chance to catch her breath. Little Red's figure turned into a red light and appeared in the sky above the huge eagle. With a flap of its wings, a fire blade hacked down and smashed onto the huge eagle's left wing, burning it. The huge eagle's gaze was savage as it howled in pain. The demonic chi surrounding its body became even more intense, causing the burning flames to extinguish in a moment. "Leave this to me and your spirit beast." After Luo Ningyu said this, her figure flashed and disappeared from the carriage. The next second, she appeared in the sky, holding a thin sword and stabbing straight at the huge eagle's head. The eagle flapped its wings. The strong wave of air broke the thick tree trunk in the blink of an eye and blew Luo Ningyu to the other side, successfully avoiding the attack. Little Red took this opportunity to counterattack again, spitting out fireballs. Lin Bai retracted his gaze and pounced on the thousand-legged worm that had charged into the carriage. Wusu tried to stop the thousand-legged worm several times, but his attacks couldn't cause any damage to the thousand-legged worm. "Leave this to me. Go and help Renmu." Lin Bai stood in front of Wusu, causing him to heave a deep sigh of relief. "Rongzi, Qilong, go and calm the people in the convoy. Don't let them escape in all directions. Now that there are 3 monsters, it means that there are still more in the forest." Rongzi and Qilong, who were so frightened that their faces were pale, nodded and rode their horses towards the convoy. "Don't run around. It's dangerous. Get back to the carriages. Guards, come here. Everyone else, get back. Don't go near the forest. Stay in the carriages." Rongzi and Qilong activated their internal energy and roared. Only then did the headless crowd quieten down a bit. Lin Bai held the cauldron in his left hand and the sword in his right. He stepped on the ground like a gust of wind and arrived beside the thousand-legged worm in a moment. He stabbed the sword in his hand. Bang! The sound of metal colliding was heard. Only the tip of the sword pierced into the thousand-legged worm's body. Not even a drop of blood flew out. Just as Lin Bai was about to stab another one, the thousand-legged worm swung its thick tail and spat out demonic chi from its mouth, attacking Lin Bai from both sides. Lin Bai tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and his body rose up high. He urged his spiritual power into the small cauldron. The small cauldron burst out a dazzling light, and immediately, a golden light smashed towards the thousand-legged worm's head. Puff! The thousand-legged worm opened its mouth and spat out a stream of bright green mucus, which flew toward the golden light. As soon as the green mucus appeared, Lin Bai smelled a pungent stench. He even caught a glimpse of the grass and trees around the thousand-legged worm, which instantly withered, turned black, and rotted. "It's poisonous. Don't come near." Qilong was about to come forward to help, but was shouted back by Lin Bai. Lin Bai had a way to deal with the poison in the mucus, but Qilong did not. If he rushed over rashly, it would be harming him. The golden light smashed into the mucus, causing the mucus to fly in all directions. It stuck to the ground, the trees, and the rocks. With a sizzling sound, the ground and the rocks were corroded into holes. The thick and sturdy trees were rotting at a speed visible to the naked eye. The thousand-legged worm failed in its first attack. It opened its mouth and spat again. At the same time, a thick and strong tail slashed out from the bottom up, blocking Lin Bai's escape route. Lin Bai did not panic. He once again activated the small cauldron and smashed it towards the thousand-legged worm. At the same time, a blue figure appeared. It waved its fist and blocked the thousand-legged worm's tail. Roar! The thousand-legged bug let out a roar, and its tail was knocked away by a punch. The shell on its tail was deeply caved in, and green blood seeped out from the cracks between the shell. Bang! The bright green mucus once again collided with the golden light. At this time, Lin Bai had already landed steadily on the ground. His calf contracted and suddenly exerted force, and his body flew out like an arrow. Lin Bai brandished the long sword in his right hand and threw it toward the thousand-legged worm's open mouth. At the same time, he had already arrived under the thousand-legged bug. He surged a huge amount of spiritual power into the small cauldron, and his left hand suddenly pushed forward. At this time, Little Blue was already above the thousand-legged worm. It clenched its hands tightly, crossed its fingers, and suddenly smashed down. The thousand-legged worm spat out a huge amount of demonic chi. At the same time, it twisted its body, causing the long sword to smash onto its body. Sparks flew in all directions, and it successfully dodged this attack. Little Blue faced the huge amount of demonic chi. Its tail hooked onto the thousand-legged worm's body, and its body changed directions in the air, causing the demonic chi to pounce on nothing. At this moment, Lin Bai's attack had arrived. Bang! Along with the sound of its shell shattering, the thousand-legged worm let out a heart-wrenching scream. It rolled and twisted on the ground, finally stopping and not moving at all. Boom! At this moment, the huge eagle soaring in the sky had a thin sword stuck in its head. The rotten feathers on its body burned and fell to the ground, turning into a pile of ashes not long after. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu looked at each other and nodded. Then, they pounced on the giant tiger. Little Black and the giant tiger were fighting fiercely, but Renmu was at a disadvantage. He could die at any moment. Seeing the two figures suddenly appear in front of him, Renmu heaved a sigh of relief. Without any hesitation, he retreated to the direction of the convoy. Little Red and Little Blue also rushed over and pounced on the giant tiger. Not long after, the huge tiger let out a deafening scream. Its entire body was spewing out scarlet and rotten blood as it fell heavily to the ground. Who? Lin Bai let out a long sigh of relief. These few spirit beasts that had suddenly appeared almost caught their convoy off guard. The most important thing was that none of them had sensed the three spirit beasts approaching. 10 days later, the convoy slowly moved forward. The guards were scattered in all directions, and there were two groups of people patrolling in the forest. Yesterday, they had been attacked by 3 mutated spirit beasts, which made everyone in the convoy panic. All of this was to prevent this from happening again. I still can't figure it out. Rongzi held his chin with one hand and shook his head. His brows were tightly knitted. At that time, we clearly didn't feel anything. But those 3 enormous spirit beasts suddenly appeared? I don't think that my spiritual sense has been so stupid. There's definitely something fishy about it. Lin Bai rode his horse and stood side by side with Rongzi. He nodded slightly. I didn't feel it at that time either. Although Little Red was patrolling along the border of the Black Cloud stronghold, Lin Bai had lost a pair of eyes that overlooked the earth from high up in the sky. But even so, the 3 huge spiritual beasts that were filled with monstrous murderous aura sneakily approached Lin Bai and successfully ambushed him. Lin Bai didn't think that under normal circumstances, he wouldn't be able to notice it. There must be something fishy going on here. Suddenly, Lin Bai raised his head and looked up with joy on his face. It's here. A bright red ball of fire swooped down from the sky and landed steadily on Lin Bai's right arm. Lin Bai took out a piece of beef jerky from his carry-on bag and threw it over. Little Red took the jerky in its mouth and moved its chin upward. With a gulp, the jerky disappeared. How was it? Lin Bai asked. Rongzi pulled the reins, stretched his neck, and subconsciously moved closer. He knew what Little Red was doing this time, and he was full of curiosity about the news that Little Red had brought. Little Red opened its mouth and began to talk animatedly. Rongzi held his breath and listened attentively, but he couldn't understand it at all. Go and hover above the convoy. Try to fly as high as you can. Once you find anything, come and find me immediately. After Lin Bai heard it, his expression became a little solemn. Little Red pecked its head, but its 2 claws tightly grabbed Lin Bai's arm, not moving at all. Lin Bai couldn't help but laugh. After taking out another piece of jerky, Little Red put it in its mouth and left in satisfaction. Not long ago, Lin Bai was really bored, so he gave a few spirit beast jerky to try. The other spirit beasts weren't interested in it at all, but Little Red had fallen in love with jerky ever since. How is it? Rongzi immediately came over. Most of the spirit beasts in the Black Cloud Stockade area have mutated. They have become irritable and full of hostility. Moreover, they have gradually begun to rot, and their bodies are surrounded by demonic chi. Lin Bai patiently told Rongzi about the news that Little Red had brought. What percentage is this? Rongzi asked. 70%. However, don't worry. I will have Little Red hover in the surroundings to ensure that the convoy will not be ambushed by those mutated spirit beasts again. Hearing Lin Bai's words, Rongzi's expression became slightly better. Rongzi pulled the reins, and the horse's speed suddenly dropped. He muttered, "We have to leave this damned place quickly." Rongzi came to Luo Ningyu's carriage and called out respectfully. Not long after, Luo Ningyu used her jade-like fingers to pull open the curtains and said, "What's the matter?" "Miss, it's like this." Rongzi informed Luo Ningyu of the news. When he spoke, he deliberately lowered his voice so that only the two of them could hear clearly. After all, if the people in the convoy heard this news, they would definitely fall into panic and choose not to continue forward. There would definitely be many people who would want to return the same way. However, at that time, the convoy would split into two, which would only increase the number of casualties. Therefore, Rongzi was secretly certain that this matter had to be kept a secret. Another half a day passed. Qilong, Wu Su, and Ren Mu rode their horses back to the convoy in a hurry. Qilong's expression was quite relaxed, while Wu Su was still as calm as an ancient well. Ren Mu frowned slightly, and his eyes flickered as if he was deep in thought. "Hey, we're back?" Qilong came not far from Lin Bai and suddenly pulled the reins. The horse stopped obediently and said impatiently, "We rode for more than half a day and ran more than 30 miles. We met 4 small villages along the way. These 4 villages, cough, cough, cough. Come, drink some water. Let's talk slowly." Rongzi took out a water bag from the side and threw it to Qilong, who was coughing nonstop. Qilong gulped down the water in the water bag and wiped the corner of his mouth with his hand. He burped and continued, "Thank you. Where were we?" "Right, those 4 villages. The villagers were living very peacefully. When we passed by, we could still see them doing farming. Children and old people were sitting at the village head, laughing and scolding. They did not look like they were being bullied by the Black Cloud Stockade at all. We asked about the 4 villages. They said that every 1 to 2 months, the Black Cloud Stockade would come to collect us some grain and money, but these were all within the scope of the villagers' affordability." And after hearing the news about Qilong, Lin Bai and Rongzi's faces became more and more solemn. These 4 villages weren't being oppressed by the Black Cloud Stockade. On the contrary, the Black Cloud Stockade controlled the quantity very well and didn't kill the chicken to get the egg. Then, what was going on with the Tuatu village that they passed by? The ambush from the Black Cloud Stockade and the mutated spiritual beasts in the forest. No matter how they thought about it, these villagers should have been swaying all day long. Lin Bai raised his head to look at Wu Su. Wu Su said indifferently, "I didn't sense any demon chi, and those spiritual beasts didn't approach the village either. No matter how I think about it, it's a little strange." Rongzi's brows were tightly knitted. He wished he could ride his horse and see for himself. What's strange about it? Those mutated spirit beasts are probably killing each other and have no time to care about the village. As for the Black Cloud Stockade, I reckon that the rabbits don't want to eat grass near their nest, so they've kept the balance very well and haven't aroused any resistance from the villagers. All right, we haven't eaten lunch yet. Rongzi, do you have anything to eat? My chest is sticking to my back." Qilong didn't believe that there was anything strange about this. He rode his horse and prepared to find some food. Wu Su and Ren Mu followed closely behind. Rongzi wanted to say something, but Qilong's trip was made by 3 people. The 3 of them didn't find anything strange, so no matter how confused he was, he could only shut his mouth for the time being. The sky gradually darkened. The convoy found a waterfall at the foot of a mountain. Under the waterfall was a deep pool, which made it easy for them to set up camp here. After dinner, the rush and fatigue during this period of time had gradually calmed the convoy down. The guards patrolled one by one, not daring to be the slightest bit careless. Lin Bai opened the curtain of the carriage. Seeing that the convoy had already quieted down, he quietly walked out. The news that he had received during the day puzzled him. With how the Black Cloud stronghold acted before, it should not be like this. After thinking hard but to no avail, Lin Bai planned to secretly make a trip to the Black Cloud stronghold. He had already asked someone to investigate the location of the Black Cloud Stockade during the day. Lin Bai came to the middle abdomen of the carriage. To the east was a forest path, which was exceptionally quiet under the night sky. "Master Lin, I did not think you would think the same as me." The cold moon hung high in the sky and silver light shone down. Amidst the low cries of night birds, Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu passed through a dense forest and climbed up the steep cliff behind the Black Cloud stronghold. The Black Cloud stronghold is easy to defend but hard to attack. It's no wonder that these bandits were able to develop into such a force. As Lin Bai spoke, he looked down and saw that there was a steep cliff below. The trees in the forest were like dotted dots. However, Lin Bai's gaze was not here. Instead, he was looking at Luo Ningyu, who was below him, and was somewhat absent-minded. Luo Ningyu stuck close to the cliff and crawled steadily. A layer of sweat appeared on her face, and a strand of her hair stuck to her cheek. Coupled with her fair face, it was somewhat white with a tinge of red. As she continued to look down, it was that, Luo Ningyu noticed Lin Bai's gaze and looked up. Her gaze was a little cold. No, nothing. Lin Bai immediately retracted his gaze. There was a moment of silence. The Black Cloud stronghold is still heavily guarded at night. This doesn't make sense. Luo Ningyu suddenly spoke. They had conducted a short survey at the foot of the Black Cloud stronghold. Every few dozen meters, there would be two bandits standing on the watchtower on the wall, constantly scanning the area below. One had to know that it was already late at night. If this was a military camp, such tight security was considered normal. But one had to know that this was the stronghold of a group of bandits. Who were the bandits? They were either lazy people, had no means to live, or those who were inherently evil. Therefore, bandits usually had no discipline. After eating and drinking at night, they would fall asleep at a certain position. It was common for bandits to pick up scraps. However, this was not the case in the Black Cloud stronghold. They had once been at the foot of the mountain and looked at the top of the stronghold. The Black Cloud stronghold was brightly lit, but it was abnormally quiet. The stockade was brightly lit, and with the tight security, the two of them had no choice but to take another risk. They took a detour to the back of the Black Cloud stronghold and climbed up the vertical cliff from the back. Indeed. Lin Bai nodded and agreed with Luo Ningyu's idea. A normal stockade shouldn't have such tight security. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu were more and more curious about what had happened in the Black Cloud stronghold. The two of them climbed along the vertical and steep cliff for half a day before they finally reached the cliff. Halfway through, the rock under Lin Bai's feet loosened, and he almost fell off the cliff. Fortunately, he had the quick wits to take out a long sword and thrust it into the cliff like cutting tofu, which stabilized the falling speed. Phew, we're finally here. Lin Bai wiped his forehead and reached down to hold Luo Ningyu's smooth and tender hand tightly. Then, he pulled her up. So light. Lin Bai sighed in his heart, but after looking at Luo Ningyu's plump body, he felt that Luo Ningyu was not light at all. Luo Ningyu noticed Lin Bai's gaze and glanced over. Lin Bai took a step back and turned to look at the Black Cloud stronghold. This Black Cloud stronghold is brightly lit. I didn't expect there to be guards patrolling the night. Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. Luo Ningyu's footsteps were very light as she arrived behind Lin Bai. Her voice was cold as she said, "Something's really wrong." Lin Bai definitely had other intentions towards Luo Ningyu, but he pretended not to understand and asked, "Then where should we start from?" Luo Ningyu glanced at Lin Bai, then retracted her gaze and looked towards the inner side of the stronghold. That place is located in the center of the stronghold, and the architecture is more exquisite and luxurious than the others. If I'm not wrong, the stronghold leader might be there. What Luo Ningyu meant was that they should head directly to their base camp. There was no need to waste time in other places of the Black Cloud stockade. Lin Bai had no objection to this. The two of them avoided the patrolling guards while walking in the dark, where the lights could not reach, and stealthily approached the building in the center. Lin Bai muttered, "I remember your people saying that there are many commoners in the Black Cloud stockade. I don't know why, but we haven't seen one along the way." Luo Ningyu nodded. "After we've finished visiting the chief, we'll come and look for those commoners." The two of them quickly sneaked to the front of the building in the center of the Black Cloud stronghold. On the upper right side of the building, there was a raised platform. On the platform were straw sheds. The straw sheds were filled with hay, fodder, and piles of stones, but there were no livestock. The two of them leaned out slightly and looked at the building below. We can't hear anything. See the balcony upstairs? Let's go there. Lin Bai pointed ahead. Luo Ningyu nodded slightly. But just as the two of them were about to jump out, the door on the first floor was kicked open with a bang. 3 people walked out while cursing. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu looked at each other and quietly followed the 3 people. Why, big brother, did you reject us? I can't figure it out. Aren't the 7 of us united? Could it be that we can't take revenge even though our 4th brother is dead? The leader was a man with a big beard. His 2 bare and burly arms were exposed, and his face was full of hatred. 3rd brother, calm down. Big brother may have his own plans. An aquiline nose followed up and patted 3rd brother's shoulder. 5th brother, how can I calm down? When I think of 4th brother being killed, I can only watch. That group of people walking around our village, it's like a knife cutting through my heart. Bang! 3rd brother punched a stone wall. The stone bricks were shattered into powder, and his fist came out from the other side. After a long time, the big-bearded 3rd brother seemed to have made up his mind. He raised his head and looked sharply at the 2 people behind him. 5th brother, 7th brother, I have already investigated the approximate location of that group of people. 40 brothers are waiting for orders. Are you guys going? If Big Brother finds out that we are going secretly like this, don't mention it. Are you going or not? If not, get lost. Let's go, let's go. 4th brother is dead. How can we not take revenge? Haha, that's right. The big-bearded 3rd brother beamed with joy. He patted the 2 of them with his thick palm. This is a good brother. Big brother has too many worries. Let's set off now, after we're done. Haven't you always wanted to have a tasteful roux? Heh, I promise you. Heh, then let's go, 4th brother. Take advantage of the night and kill them all. Take back the heads of those who did it and use them as urine pots. After making up their minds, the 3 of them followed a small path and arrived at the foot of the Black Cloud stronghold. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu followed closely behind. It wasn't easy to enter the Black Cloud stronghold, but it was much easier to leave. The 2 of them easily arrived at the foot of the Black Cloud stronghold, an empty place. You 2 wait here. I'll go and call over 40 brothers. After 3rd brother finished his instructions, he turned around and walked to the other side of the stronghold. Poochie, you. 3rd brother's heart was stabbed by a small knife. His eyes bulged out as he looked behind him in disbelief. 3rd brother, I'm sorry. I can only let you accompany 4th brother. Bah! The 5th brother of the Black Cloud stronghold spat at the bearded man who was lying on the ground. We told him to listen, but he won't listen. Then, we can't be blamed for being ruthless. As the 2 of them spoke, they casually dug a hole and threw the 3rd brother of the Black Cloud stronghold into it. Then, they hastily filled up some soil and finished the job. This? Luo Ningyu frowned and looked at Lin Bai. Everything happened too suddenly. Not to mention the 3rd brother of the Black Cloud stronghold, even Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu, the 2 bystanders, did not react in time. Shoo! Lin Bai shook his head and signaled for Luo Ningyu to be quiet. Not long after, the sound of 2 footsteps gradually faded away from the shadows in front of them. Only then did Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu speak again. There is indeed something strange in the Black Cloud stronghold. It might be what you said. Someone is coming. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu held their breath as best as they could and hid themselves in the darkness. Not long after, a figure sneakily appeared in the small open space in front of them. That person bent his back and looked around with a sharp gaze. He slowly moved to the side of the Black Cloud stronghold. However, the man didn't know if he realized that the defense of the Black Cloud stronghold was too tight. He hesitated and stopped in his tracks. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu looked at each other and nodded. Hey! Qilong! Lin Bai shouted in a low voice. You guys are here. It's easy for me to find you. When Qilong heard someone calling his name, he couldn't help but shiver. When he heard that it was a familiar voice, he let out a long sigh of relief and quickly ran over. What are you doing here? Lin Bai asked coldly. No, it's not good. Qilong stammered. When he got closer, Lin Bai realized that Qilong's face was pale, his clothes tattered, and there was a blood mark on his shoulder. What's wrong? Luo Ningyu asked. a bad premonition in her heart. Just now, the convoy was attacked. A group of people came under the cover of night, and there were beastmasters inside. Qi-Long steadied his breathing and finished his sentence in one breath. We weren't a match at all. After asking your spirit beast, it pointed me in a general direction. Only then did I know that you were here. So, I quickly came to get reinforcements. In the convoy, when it came to cultivation, Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu were ranked first and second. There was an indelible gap between them and the rest of the group. Lin Bai looked into Qi-Long's eyes and did not say a word. Before he left the convoy, he had left Little Black, Little Red, and Little Green there to prevent a night attack. Little Black, Little Red, and Little Green were much stronger than Qi-Long and the others when they worked together. However, the three brothers from the Black Cloud stronghold who wanted to cause trouble for them were already dead. So who was the one who attacked the convoy in the night? Lin Bai glanced at Luo Ningyu, who was also confused. Suddenly, Lin Bai thought of the group of people who were hiding in the dense forest not far away when he killed the fourth brother of the Black Cloud stronghold. Could it be them? Let's not waste time, let's go. Luo Ningyu turned her head and rushed toward the convoy. Tell me, how many of them are there? As they sped through the forest, Lin Bai asked Qi-Long. As the saying went, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. If they could identify their enemies in advance, they would be able to make plans in advance, and they would be able to handle the situation at the scene with ease. 4 martial cultivators, 2 beastmasters, and over 40 low-level martial artists. Qi-Long didn't think that Lin Bai's question was a big deal, so he answered honestly, we're almost there. I hope they're fine. Lin Bai looked up ahead. They were indeed a few miles away from the caravan's camp. However, the dense forest ahead was dark, and only the slanted moonlight could be seen. The distant sky was also silent. Lin Bai subconsciously looked at Qi-Long, but he saw a savage smile on Qi-Long's face under the moonlight. Buzz. Lin Bai immediately took out the small cauldron, stomped on the tree trunk, and rushed in Qi-Long's direction. Hey, you found out? It's too late. Qi-Long seemed to have expected Lin Bai to make a move. Just as Lin Bai made his move, his right hand suddenly stretched out. Crack. A series of metal sounds were heard, accompanied by a series of air-piercing sounds. Lin Bai caught a glimpse of a few hidden weapons rushing over from the corner of his eye. He couldn't care less about catching Qi-Long, so he could only protect himself with the small cauldron. Bang! The hidden weapons all smashed onto the small cauldron and fell to the ground. When Lin Bai raised his head again, Qi-Long had already pulled away from them. He stood on a thick tree trunk and looked down at the two of them. Bang! 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 Qi-Long shook his head, clapped his hands, and praised. As expected of that Lin Bai, he actually discovered our plan so quickly. However, why are you struggling? It's useless. There's an ambush around. Luo Ningyu's feet flashed as she arrived behind Lin Bai. The two of them leaned back against each other as they vigilantly observed their surroundings. Well done. A person dressed in nocturnal clothing appeared in the forest. His figure flashed as he appeared beside Qi-Long. Lord Lu. Qi-Long respectfully bowed. Lu? Lin Bai frowned as he wanted to see this person clearly. However, the light was too dark, and he was dressed in nocturnal clothing. It was impossible to see him clearly. Lu's voice was very soft as he said, "Let's end this quickly." Immediately, among those who were hiding in the darkness, 6 people emerged from the darkness. Pairs of eyes locked onto Lin Bai and Lu Bai, and that gaze was like looking at lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They are very strong. If it's a 1v2, they still have a chance of winning. Let's 1v3. And there's also that person above, whose strength can't be seen clearly. This isn't good. Lin Bai's sharp gaze swept the surroundings, and very quickly, he had a rough estimation of the situation. Heh, you won't be able to escape. These past few days, I've been hiding by your side. Do you think that I've been hiding for nothing? I've long understood your strength. Qi-Long laughed loudly. He glanced at Lin Bai, and then his gaze locked onto Luo Ningyu. Lord Lu, this woman? Do whatever you want with her. Lord Lu waved his hand as if he didn't care about this at all. Qi-Long licked his tongue when he heard this. His eyes were spitting fire. Do it. With an order, The 6 people who were already prepared moved out together. Bang! However, at this moment, a blue figure rose into the air and smashed heavily onto the ground. The earth shook and the mountains shook. The ground was smashed to pieces, and dust and gravel flew everywhere. The 6 people had no choice but to stop, and at the same time, they also hid the figures of Lin Bai and Qilong. What are you waiting for? Hurry, charge in, don't let them escape. Qilong shouted, asking the 6 people to quickly enter the dust. Chase, they're going that way. Lu Zhe's gaze was sharp. With a light step, he rose high into the air and flew in the direction of the black cloud stockade. The remaining people followed closely behind. Not long after, Lu stopped not far away from the black cloud stockade. Lord Lu, why? Why did they stop? Qilong did not understand. There's no need to chase. Lu sneered. Heh, they have run into the Wu Mountain and will never be able to come out again. I've left a few traps behind. It's nighttime now, so they'll definitely activate them. Lin Bai turned his head and glanced at Luo Ningyu. Lin Bai didn't think that just a few traps would be enough to heavily injure the enemies behind them. With their strength, they could easily avoid the traps that Lin Bai had temporarily set up. The purpose of Lin Bai setting up these traps was to trigger the traps. From this, he could determine the position of the enemies and make a backup plan. The 2 of them traveled quickly through the forest and soon arrived at the foot of a mountain. This mountain was indescribably silent. There was not even the chirping of insects or birds. The wind blew past, making people feel a deep chill. The demonic qi here seems to be very dense, even more dense than the demonic qi in the Black Cloud stronghold. Luo Ningyu frowned slightly. She stood on a small open space and looked at the pitch-black mountain in front of her. The demonic qi at the foot of this mountain was as dense as the Black Cloud stronghold, and the closer it was to the top of the mountain, the denser the demonic qi was. Then what about the demonic qi on the top of the mountain? Luo Ningyu couldn't help but shudder. Even though she had fought many times, this was the first time she had seen such dense demonic qi. Although she was curious about what was on the top of the mountain, her intuition told her not to act rashly. Something seems to be wrong. Lin Bai turned his head and looked at the road he came from. What's wrong? None of the traps I set seemed to have been triggered, and they showed no signs of chasing after us. The 2 of them fell into a short silence. We'll wait here. Once there are any clues, we'll leave immediately, Lin Bai suggested. Luo Ningyu nodded slightly and did not have any objections. Time passed by minute. The mountain wind blew and blew, and Lin Bai could not help but wrap his clothes. This was the strangest wind he had ever seen. He turned his head to look at Luo Ningyu, who was leaning against a tree trunk. She was also wrapping her clothes tightly. Could there be something strange about this wind? Lin Bai could not help but frown. He carefully felt the mountain wind, but other than this gloomy and cold wind, he did not feel anything special. After a short while, as expected, Luo Ningyu walked out from the shadow of the tree trunk and looked at the road they came from. She suddenly felt something. She took out a small sword from somewhere, waved her arm, and threw it out. The small sword cut through the night, making a series of ear-piercing sounds. The naked eye could barely track it. After the small sword flew 70 to 80 meters away, it fell to the ground with a bang, as if it hit something in the air. Lin Bai had a bad premonition. He hurried to the place where the small sword fell and raised his right hand. Buzz! A soft sound came from the air. Lin Bai's right hand was isolated by an invisible barrier. He was able to enter without any obstruction, but he could not leave. No way? Again? Lin Bai thought of the scenes that had happened when he revealed the city lord's true colors and could not help but feel a headache. In 15 minutes, we'll meet here. You go over there. I'll come over here. Whether there are any clues or not, we have to return in 15 minutes. After a short discussion, Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu decided to take a look at the range of the invisible barrier and see what secrets the mountain had. Be careful, Lin Bai instructed Luo Ningyu. Luo Ningyu nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Lin Bai also turned around and walked along the foot of the mountain, following the invisible barrier, straight ahead. His speed was not very fast, and he would touch the invisible barrier from time to time. If it was possible, he really wanted to find the exit like this. Suddenly, Lin Bai felt that he had stepped on something and let out a crisp, cracking sound. He raised his foot, pushed aside the bushes, and reached out to touch it. Bone. He was holding a piece of white bone, or a spine bone. He narrowed his eyes and saw that there were 2 thigh bones beside the spine bone, and one of the thigh bones was broken. This place. When Lin Bai thought that it was not rare to see corpses in the mountains and forests, he could not help but have a bad premonition. He quickly jumped onto a tree trunk with a good view, took out 2 fire canisters, and threw them in 2 different directions. The fire canisters fell on the ground and quickly lit up the weeds, illuminating the dark forest. Lin Bai could finally see the truth. "Let me see," hiss. Lin Bai could not help but take a deep breath. In this dense forest, in the bushes, there were white bones everywhere, covering the entire ground. After extinguishing the fire that had just been lit, Lin Bai followed the tree trunk as far as possible to explore, and he still used the same lighting method. But after walking for a long while, there were still dense white bones under the tree trunk where he was standing. However, some of the white bones were stained with rotten meat and clothes. After walking for another long while, Lin Bai could only smell the strong smell of blood. Below him were dead bodies. The fresh blood soaked the soil and turned it into bloody mud. The seal here is still there. If I'm not mistaken, this seal is the seal that seals the entire mountain. Lin Bai's hand that was holding onto the tree trunk had unknowingly left a handprint on it, causing the tree bark to be deeply dented. Although I still want to explore further, 15 minutes have already passed. He took another deep breath and turned around to return to the agreed location. Not long after Lin Bai returned to the agreed location, Luo Ningyu also returned with a solemn expression. Her 2 thin eyebrows were tightly knitted together, and her calm eyes were filled with raging anger. "It seems that you and I saw the same thing." Lin Bai clenched his fist. Luo Ningyu nodded. She opened her mouth and was silent for a while before saying, "Now, we still have to find a way out. No matter what they have in mind or what they want to do, we must do our best to stop them." Lin Bai had no objections to this. However, the formation that seals an entire mountain is still a formation that allows anyone to enter. "I think it will be very difficult for the 2 of us to break it," Lin Bai said frankly. His knowledge of formations was rather shallow. After Luo Ningyu entered the seal, she did not notice that something was wrong at the first moment. This meant that she was on par with Lin Bai in this aspect. "I'm already prepared for this." After saying this, Luo Ningyu took out a jade pendant and held it in her hand, injecting a trace of spiritual energy into it. The jade pendant emitted waves of green light, like fireflies dotted in the dark night. "I need help. I need someone who is proficient in array formations. It's very troublesome." After Luo Ningyu said that to the jade pendant, she looked at Lin Bai. "It should be a while before someone responds. Is this the communication tool of your organization?" Lin Bai looked at the jade pendant curiously. This was the first time that he had the thought of entering their organization, but now was not the time to think about it. "Then, let's go to the top of the mountain and take a look. The demonic energy there is the densest. Maybe we can find something there." "I have the same idea." The more they climbed up the mountain, the more Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu felt that the demonic qi around them was becoming denser. The demonic qi on this mountain is the densest I've ever experienced. Luo Ningyu's expression became increasingly solemn. She had fought with the demons many times and knew very well what it meant for the demonic qi to be so dense. She looked down at the jade pendant. The jade pendant was dim, and no one had replied to her yet. "I didn't feel such dense demon qi even when I was on that altar last time." Lin Bai frowned slightly and looked around with sharp eyes. The closer they got to the mountain, the more they didn't dare to be careless. If they were careless, the consequences would be obvious. However, we didn't see any mutated spirit beasts on this mountain. Lin Bai had been searching for traces of mutated spirit beasts ever since he started his exploration. However, they had already reached the belly of the mountain. Not to mention the traces of spirit beasts, they hadn't even heard the voices of spirit beasts. "It's not just spirit beasts." Luo Ningyu's voice was very soft. "It should be said that after we came to this mountain, other than the grass and trees, we haven't seen a single living creature." It was just as Luo Ningyu had said. The surrounding mountains were so quiet that it was frightening. Their voices seemed to be swallowed by darkness as soon as they were heard. Only the sound of their hurried footsteps echoed in the air. Lin Bai raised his head and looked at the starry sky above. It was unknown when the moon and the stars had disappeared. He lowered his head and looked at his 5 fingers, but he couldn't see them with the naked eye. After about 15 minutes, the two of them slowly arrived at the top of the mountain. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu were extremely careful along the way. In addition to constantly searching for suspicious places, they had spent some time. But they were already certain. The creatures on this mountain, other than the two of them, had all died in the wilderness. Along the way, they saw 3 rare and powerful spiritual beasts, but those 3 spiritual beasts were already corpses, and their ghastly white bones could be vaguely seen. Other than that, under a towering tree, they also found dead crows all over the ground. From this, they could determine that something must have happened on this mountain not too long ago, causing the birds and insects, such weak existences, to instantly die. This could also explain why the dead crows were all under that towering tree. And those spirit beasts should have been affected by this mountain bit by bit, eventually exhausting their lives. Traces of struggle could be seen everywhere on the bodies of these spirit beasts. There are no living things. To us, this can be considered good news. Lin Bai smiled bitterly. Oh. Luo Ningyu was somewhat puzzled. That means that we won't be ambushed by the things in the dark. We just need to think of a way to escape from here. I hope you didn't jinx it. Luo Ningyu rolled her eyes at Lin Bai. Look, we're at the top of the mountain. Is that a flat platform? Lin Bai could see a platform made of marble in front of him with a diameter of 200 to 300 meters. At the outermost edge of the platform, there were red stones that looked like they were dripping with blood. Blood jade stone. Luo Ningyu stretched out a finger and touched it. Let's see if we can destroy this stone. Lin Bai took out a small cauldron and was about to make a move, but Luo Ningyu stopped him. Don't make a move recklessly. You might be counterattacked by the formation. Luo Ningyu shook her head. Her jade-like hand gripped a blood jade stone tightly. Then, she urged her spiritual power to gather at her fingertip. She controlled her spiritual power perfectly, and the speed at which she pulled the jade stone increased bit by bit. But in the end, the blood jade stone still didn't move at all. The two of them tried some different methods. When Lin Bai was ready to take the risk and hit the jade stone with the small cauldron, a layer of light with ancient patterns instantly covered the jade stone, and the light layer absorbed all the attacks of the small cauldron. All the methods that can be used have been used. Luo Ningyu wiped the sweat on her forehead, her eyes filled with disappointment. Lin Bai took out 2 water bags and some jerky. Why don't we sit down first? There's no good way anyway. Luo Ningyu hesitated for a moment and nodded. She took the jerky and chewed it silently in her cherry-like small mouth. Then she took a sip of water. Lin Bai threw a few pieces of jerky into his mouth and ate them in big mouthfuls. After gulping down half a sack of water, he let out a long breath. I wonder how the convoy is doing? Luo Ningyu sat on a broken tree stump and looked down the mountain. When Qilong first called us, he definitely didn't attack the convoy. But after they stopped chasing us, it's hard to say, Lin Bai analyzed calmly. However, my little beasts are also in the convoy. If they want to attack, they will have to pay a price. Cough, cough. At this moment, a man's cough sounded in the darkness. Lin Bai almost stood up, but when he caught a glimpse of the jade pendant on Luo Ningyu's waist flickering with green light, he sat down again. Hey, is our big Miss Luo in trouble? A young man's voice came from the jade pendant. Lin Bai saw that Luo Ningyu's brows were tightly furrowed. It was obvious that she did not like the man on the other end of the jade pendant. Her voice was cold as she said, yes. Haha, Miss Luo, haven't you always looked down on people like us who study formations? The person on the other end of the jade pendant wanted to mock Luo Ningyu, but when he saw that Luo Ningyu did not reply, he coughed awkwardly. Himph, all things are low grade, only the array formation is high. Today, I will be merciful and help you all. Luo Ningyu's brows tightened. Lin Bai's lips twitched. It seemed like the person on the other end of the jade pendant was the act tough king. No wonder Luo Ningyu's expression turned ugly the moment she heard this voice. Luo Ningyu simply told the man on the other end of the jade pendant about the situation of the mountain and the details she had found. The jade pendant was silent for a while. This mountain is an altar. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu widened their eyes at the same time. Everything that they had just investigated was connected to this altar. This is not good. This is not good. The entire mountain is an altar. This method is not something that an ordinary person can do. The man on the other end of the jade pendant was clearly having a headache. Is there any way? Lin Bai asked. Luo Ningyu also revealed a hopeful look. Haha, you are asking the right person. Laughter came from the other side of the jade pendant, and the previous headache-like tone disappeared. Lin Bai clenched his fist, a little wanting to hit him. Luo Ningyu's hand that was holding the jade pendant also tightened. She was obviously having the same thoughts as Lin Bai. I'll tell you now. Follow the steps I tell you, and you'll be able to break the array formation on this altar easily. Ha ha ha, come and thank me when you come out. Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu's eyebrows twitched, but they could only listen to the person on the other end of the jade pendant. You guys first. The person on the other end of the jade pendant began to speak. Suddenly, Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu turned their heads at the same time and looked into the darkness of the mountain forest. A huge, thick voice was heard, wriggling and emitting a deafening roar. Roar. What is it? What are your names? Hello? Hello. Say something, The man on the other end of the jade pendant roared curiously. However, neither Lin Bai nor Luo Ningyu had the time to answer him. That was because they could vaguely see that figure. It was a 6-meter-tall demon flood dragon that was crawling on the ground. Its tail couldn't be seen behind it. Its entire body was covered in black scales, and it was surrounded by a demonic aura that was almost corporeal. Some parts of its body were revealed with white bones and rotten flesh. Demon? Flood dragon? Luo Ningyu lost her voice as she stared at the mountain-like body. Demon flood dragon? Lin Bai frowned slightly as he continued to break his hind legs with Luo Ningyu, putting some distance between him and the demon flood dragon that was charging over. Yes, the demon flood dragon is made by demons using a special method. The demon flood dragon needs to feed on demon chi, and the more demon chi there is, the more powerful the demon flood dragon will be. After Luo Ningyu calmed herself down, she patiently explained to Lin Bai. Roar. The demon flood dragon howled, as if the entire mountain was trembling, and the sky was shaking as if it was about to collapse. A powerful demon power swept towards Lin Bai and Luo Ningyu. Fortunately, the two of them had some experience dealing with the demon chi. If it was someone who had never encountered the demon chi, they might have died just from hearing the demon flood dragon's roar. Lin Bai summoned the small cauldron, which emitted a golden light. It formed a sharp contrast with the surrounding darkness. It was like a ray of sunlight in the endless darkness, tiny and dazzling. He said, retreating like this is not a solution. The demon flood dragon is probably left here on purpose by the person who set up this array formation. Although Luo Ningyu did not want to fight with the demon flood dragon, she could only do so in the current situation. She said, this is also my first time fighting with the demon flood dragon. I don't know its weakness, but the scales on its body can be broken by extraordinary items. Try to aim at the parts of its body that are already beginning to fester. Lin Bai nodded. He held a cauldron in his left hand and a sword in his right. A blue figure leaped up from behind him like a comet, smashing towards the demon flood dragon. Bang! Dust flew everywhere. Lin Bai took advantage of this opportunity and took small steps. His figure was like a ghost in the night as he arrived beside the demon flood dragon. There was a 3-meter-long hole on the right side of the demon flood dragon. The hole was so rotten that white bones could be seen. There was a substance-like liquid gushing out from the hole. Lin Bai channeled his spiritual power and poured it into the small cauldron. A golden light shot out and smashed into the demon flood dragon's body from the rotten hole. Buzz. The golden light destroyed the rotten flesh and shattered the white bones. It pierced through the other side of the body, causing the rotten green blood to splatter everywhere. Roar. The demon flood dragon roared. It turned its small mountain-like head and stared at Lin Bai with a pair of crazy eyes. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at Lin Bai. Lin Bai stepped lightly on the ground and jumped high, causing the demon flood dragon to miss. "Be careful!" Luo Ningyu cried out in alarm. Lin Bai heard a voice that he had never heard before. He looked in the direction of the voice and saw that the demon flood dragon was gathering demonic qi at its right angle. Lin Bai cursed in his heart. The small cauldron in his left hand and the long sword in his right hand were completely protected in front of him. Bang! The demon flood dragon used its horn to launch an attack that carried a dense aura of death. Wherever it passed, not a blade of grass would grow. It smashed into the small cauldron and the long sword. Lin Bai, who was high in the sky, was sent flying heavily. He smashed one thick tree after another, and his feet sank into the soil. His long sword stabbed deep into the ground before he managed to stabilize himself. The demon flood dragon originally wanted to give chase, but Little Blue and Luo Ningyu quickly attacked and blocked the roaring demon flood dragon. Lin Bai also took the opportunity to let out a sigh of relief. If it wasn't for the small cauldron and the long sword blocking the attack, he might have already lost his fighting strength and even died. Lin Bai wiped the sweat off his forehead and narrowed his eyes as he looked ahead. The demon flood dragon was fighting with Little Blue and Luo Ningyu. The demon flood dragon's body was huge and its strength could destroy mountains and rivers, but it wasn't as agile as Little Blue. Little Blue dodged agilely time and time again, causing the demon flood dragon's attacks to miss. Luo Ningyu held a thin sword in her hand. Her sword technique had a faint intent that could steadily neutralize the demon flood dragon's attacks, but she couldn't deal any substantial damage to the demon flood dragon. The 3-meter-long hole in the demon flood dragon's body that Lin Bai had just attacked had already disappeared. There were even a few broken bones. Looking through the hole this time, one could see that there was a hole on the other side of the demon flood dragon's body. However, the demon flood dragon didn't seem to be affected by this at all. Lin Bai couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. Little Blue and Luo Ningyu were on the verge of falling under the demon flood dragon's frenzied attacks. Lin Bai didn't waste any more time. With a tap of his toes, he appeared beside Luo Ningyu. Luo Ningyu's beautiful hair fluttered in the wind, and her clothes fluttered in the wind. Her eyes were as cold as blades, but there was an additional blush on her fair face. When the demon flood dragon saw Lin Bai approaching, it immediately glared at him with its scarlet eyes. Its thick tail even whipped over. Little Blue threw 2 punches at the tail to dissipate some of the force, and its footsteps soared high into the air. It then used its tail to wrap around the demon flood dragon's tail. Only then was it able to neutralize the attack of the flood dragon. Lin Bai retracted his gaze and said softly, "The damage I caused just now doesn't seem to have caused any substantial damage. Help me stall him for 10 seconds. Luo Ningyu glanced at Lin Bai. When she saw that his eyes were as calm as water and that his body did not suffer any damage from the previous attack, she silently nodded her head. The small cauldron floated in front of Lin Bai's chest. Streams of spiritual power flowed through Lin Bai's meridians and into the small cauldron. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The golden light emitted by the small cauldron became more and more vigorous, more and more intense, and more dazzling. The demon flood dragon noticed the changes in Lin Bai's side and felt a fear that went straight to the soul. Its tail suddenly whipped towards Luo Ningyu and Little Blue, but its body quickly moved forward. Luo Ningyu and Little Blue wanted to use their attacks to stop the demon flood dragon, but the demon flood dragon didn't care at all. It allowed the human and beast attacks to shatter its scales and turn it into a bloody mess. Lin Bai was the only thing left in its eyes. There was only madness and fear in its eyes. A ball of black light curled around the demon flood dragon's right horn. The ball of black light gradually gathered and became bigger. Dense demonic qi and death qi were contained within. Lin Bai suddenly opened his eyes. A ray of golden light flashed through his black pupils. The demon flood dragon raised its head and roared. The black light on the right angle burst out. Roar! At the same time, the small cauldron emitted a dazzling light. This light was like a red sun, smashing towards the demon flood dragon with ease. Wherever it passed, the stone slabs would be crushed into powder, and the ground would sink deep into the landmarks. Bang! One gold, one black, the 2 rays of light smashed together. An incomparably strong wave of air surged, blowing down one tree after another. The stone slabs were sent flying one by one, and the entire mountain began to tremble. Roar! The demon flood dragon let out a heart-wrenching scream as its body continued to roll on the ground, raising the dense forest not far away to the ground. It's settled, right? Luo Ningyu said with some lack of confidence as she quietly retreated to Lin Bai's side. When the demon flood dragon saw Lin Bai earlier, it had almost gone mad. Even with Little Blue's help, she had almost been unable to stop the demon flood dragon. Fortunately,